All right, folks are still trickling in, but I'd just like to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our second practice management session of 2025. Today's topic is on advisor succession planning. I hope you've had a productive RRSP season and are feeling a sense of renewal as we transition into spring. If you're new to Zoom webinar, no worries, just use the Q&A or the chat to jump in. This is a conversation, not a lecture. On a personal note, this is a special event for me, not only because of today's speakers, but also because this is my first time presenting as principal of SaaS Wealth Insurance, my practice, rather than with the advisor flow hat. If you enjoyed today's session, you can visit our website at www.advisorflow.ca/webinars to check out recordings of all our previous events. If you've got a topic you think we should explore in practice management or an expert that we should offer the mic to, please drop me a message on LinkedIn, as I'd love to hear from you, as we're still shaping up our 2025 lineup. Today will be more of a Q&A than a presentation, but we will have a short presentation from Chris Reynolds. Chris and his team have done some of the most in-depth research on advisor succession that I've seen, and I couldn't think of a better way to set the stage for today's discussion. I'll then interview Kirk Wakefield so we can learn more about his career and his transition plan before we move into an open Q&A. That'll be a forum with the three of us. As usual, I'll round things out with a summary and a review of some upcoming product releases for Advisor Flow. Now, this isn't just a talk, so I'm hoping that all of you on the call will use this as an opportunity to ask questions to Kirk and Chris directly. So don't hold back, use the chat and the Q&A function, and let's make this a great conversation. Our speakers today are pillars of success in our financial services industry. First off, Chris Reynolds, who started Investment Planning Council in 1995. He currently serves as the executive chair, and his firm is renowned for its client-centric approach and fostering a family-like culture among advisors. For people that know about building a successful advisory business, like Chris, you'll know that he's a real fun guy and a guy that you just want to be around. With IPC, he's not just built a firm, he's built a legacy, which makes him the perfect person to kick off our talk on succession. In addition, in his role, he heads up a podcast called Turning the Page, where he engages visionaries and advisors, exploring strategies to help them build better businesses. I've listened to several episodes and they're awesome, so definitely check them out if you haven't. Next up, we have Kirk Wakefield, a seasoned financial advisor based in Vancouver, British Columbia. Known for his meticulous attention to detail, active listening skills, and extensive experience in the financial services industry. Before Kirk became a financial advisor, he was a playmaker on the ice, taking 69 points in the 79-78 season for the Northwest Caps Junior A team. And if you ask him, he's still in his prime. Beyond the numbers and portfolio, Kirk has been an incredible investment advisor and raised an amazing family. So he's raised two amazing daughters with his wife, Kelly. Welcome to you both, and thank you for sharing your time and some of your story with us today. So Chris, given your experience at IPC and all the research you've done, what are some of the key trends that you're seeing in advisor succession today?
Well, there's lots of trends. Succession is a big part, not only of our business, by the way. It's right across the board. Demographics are driving this ongoing talk of succession, but specifically in our industry, you can see it, and it's happening in real time. Like, this isn't something that's going to happen in the future. This is happening as we see it. One startling statistic is that currently the independent wealth management space. So I'm going to take non-bank, so take the banks out of there, take Investors Group out of there, just leave with the independents. On the independent side, currently in the Canadian space, we're about $1 trillion industry, thereabouts, like, so let's say 900 million. Half of those assets are held by advisors or controlled or managed by advisors who are over the age of 60. That's a $450 billion, you can call it opportunity, or you can also call it a challenge. And the challenge is, to your point, is out of that $450 billion managed by advisors over the age of 60s, that's 7 out of 10, right? This is a big thing. People should be thinking of this. But here's the challenge. Only 11% of them actually have a formalized succession plan. It's like the 75% have a rough idea or no plan at all. But this comes right from research that was done among advisors, that only 11%. Like, that's amazing. And yet we're in the advice business. We give our clients advice. We deal with business owners. And the first thing we would tell them is, How are you going to drive your equity for the business you've built? How are you going to make sure your clients are looked after? How are you going to make sure your staff is looked after? And yet, startling to your point, only 11% are actually prepared and ready for that transition. So, what does it take to put together a succession plan? Like, this comes from George Hartman, and he's done some incredible work around succession planning in the Canadian space, specifically in the wealth management space. And what you want to do is get yourself into the right space. Starting at the sort of bottom left column, low emotion, low financial. These are the people who are not prepared at all. They have no interest in succession planning whatsoever. They don't know what their business is worth. They don't know how to get the money out of their business. They have no idea. Uh, there are other side where you could have high emotion, low financial. And we see this all the time. This is especially true in succession planning, especially where kids are involved. Like we really want our kids involved. We're like, I can't wait to get them in. They're going to buy this business. And then they realize how much that business is worth. Like conservatively, they might have an equity value of their business of $3 million. Now, when I say low financial, I'm going to guess that most of their kids don't have $3 million kicking around. And if they do, I'm wondering where they got it from. So therefore, it's low financial. In other words, the only way that that transaction is probably going to take place is if mom or dad help in that transition. Might give maybe fair, very favorable conditions, maybe a low price. Then on the other side, sort of the right lower, yeah, low emotion. In other words, there are companies out there that are throwing numbers around that seem unbelievable. That these high financial numbers out there, and people are like, oh, I can give you this and give you that. By the way, no one ever gets past the first page into the conditions of how you're going to get all that money. But a lot of people like the big highlights on the front page. But low emotion. They have no interest in that whatsoever. They're shopping the market, looking to whoever gives the highest payout, but it's not really hitting and ticking the boxes. The place that everybody wants to be in, and hopefully what we'll get through in the show, is high emotion, high financial, right? In other words, you know exactly what you want. You know what you want for your business. You know what you want for your clients. You know what you want for your staff. You know what you want from a legacy point of view. And it is meeting, the equity value that some people, and I'm sure we'll hear from Kurt, have spent a lifetime creating this legacy that wants to live on and also get the right money, bottom line it for the business that they have built and get it with conditions that are livable. So I think that's what we all want. And so I think today we'll bring out some of those things. Now, as I said, we put this in Investment Planning Council. For those who don't know, founded Investment Planning Council, and it was really founded under the same principles as we hold dear today. We founded them. I was an advisor. I love being an advisor, but I didn't see any. I saw a lot of controversy and a lot of, I'm going to say, friction between companies and advisors. And we wanted to create something that really focused on one thing, which is helping advisors build a better business. Now, over time, we have more focused on that remarkable client experience and going deeper and deeper with the family connections and giving advice. But our principles, 30 years ago, and I founded it last September, the principles then and the principles today are exactly the same. Every thought we have as an organization is how do we help advisors build a better business? And now, to your point, we've done a lot of work in the succession area because the natural progression of all businesses is to have the best succession, is to get the best values, to make sure your clients are looked after, your legacy lives on, and the people who have helped you build it also continue to, thrive as the business continues to move forward. So that's been our principles.
Excellent. Well, Chris, thank you very much for sharing that. I think that sets the stage really well for the rest of our conversation. It's clear that succession planning is not being focused on by most advisors. 11%, that's a pretty embarrassing number, considering it's something that we try to teach our clients to do, which is plan for the future. Now, I'm going to focus on Kirk here for a minute because Kirk and I really go way back. About 7 years. We first connected at industry events, and over time, I got to see firsthand why his clients trust him so much and how he was able to build such a successful business. He was also very kind enough to send me some of his younger clients that helped set the stage for our relationship together. I'll admit, coming from a millennial background, I was really all about high growth, high risk. But Kirk showed me that real success in the investment planning world isn't just about hitting home runs. It's about playing solid defense as well. I learned that many clients care more about actually how you protect them on the downside rather than chasing unsustainable returns year after year. And it was good timing for making that adjustment because clearly today is a pretty bad day in the markets. Now, beyond the business, Kirk is a family man. So, as I mentioned, he's raised two wonderful daughters with his wife, Kelly. And so, Kirk, I've got a few questions for you. Hopefully, I didn't set you off with some of these photos. But for those who haven't met you before, what got you into the business and where did you start?
Yeah, those pictures are nice. Who'd you pay to get those for put up here? Um, how did I get into business? Well, I moved to Edmonton. I was up in Edmonton, Alberta for about 5 years. I went up there with a friend of mine. We were working in a doing a finance, um, running the finance department of this company, and I was there about 5 years, 6 years, which was great because it was the years of the when Gretzky was up there and the Oilers won all the Stanley Cup. So I was there, had a good time. But what was happening is the company I was working for was having financial problems, and I needed to, have something on to safeguard my income where I was going to go next. And I was being recruited by London Life at that time, and stayed with London Life simply because I needed a paycheck to keep rolling in. And that's how it all started up in Edmonton. And when I was in Edmonton, worked there for a year, decided to transfer down to Vancouver because that was my natural market. And to be honest with you, I was still going to be looking for another job when I came down to Vancouver. And then 40 years later, I'm still doing that same job I started up in Edmonton.
And how many of those clients in Edmonton are still with you today or
I
work
do,
with you?
yeah, I have about three solid clients that are still up there.
That's pretty impressive. And that's quite a long history with those clients, even from afar.
Yeah, they're good clients. They built their assets up over the years, so they're very good clients today for sure.
And who inspired you throughout your career?
Well, it's not one individual. I think what kept me in this business right at the beginning, because we all know how hard it is. You don't plan on becoming a life insurance agent either in your life. But when I met the group that I ended up working with for quite a few years down in Vancouver, we all had the same DNA. We all were the same people. Love to work, love sports, and love to have fun. And also very competitive. And that's what grew me to survive in this business in the early years. It was those guys, which 90% of them are still in the business today, and I see on a regular basis. So if it wasn't for their help and and their competitiveness and surviving, then I probably would never made it.
And what would you say is some of the most memorable moments you might have had throughout your career? And for the room, the reason I'm asking these questions is I think it's so important for advisors, whether you're transitioning to retirement or advisors that are looking to grow through acquisition. The story is the most important part. That's literally why we got into this business, is to help our clients with their stories. So, yeah, Kirk, if you have any sort of memorable moments you can share, I think that would be really helpful for the audience.
Well, on a business side, on a client side, my moments with them is you're working with these clients for so long that I can show them where their money was 10 years ago and where it is today. And show them that I told you that the track was not a straight line, but we still got to where we're predicting we're going to do, and we're still there. And when you can show a client that after being with them 10 years or longer, um, that's pretty cool. That's where they trust you more, and they just look and you see in their eyes that they're so relieved that they stuck with it over that time.
I think that's something that really attracted me to you early was the fact that we're in the planning business, not in the necessarily the selling business. And so many in our industry, I've noticed early days, we're very focused on selling, but you've always taken more of that planning approach. When did that shift happen for you, and what difference did it make in your business?
That was the biggest shift in my business that made me grow and become successful. Up to that point, I was just a product salesperson. I'd go in and go, what would you like? I got this product, this product, this product. Which one do you want? That one? Okay, I'll do that. And that's what I did. Then I went to a seminar somewhere. I forget where it was. And I saw this software. And with that software, I said I could actually do proper planning for my clients and show them everything that I want to show them. And in a way that I don't have to sell them. They're going to want to buy this stuff, whatever they need, whether it's an RSP, life insurance, non-registered camp, whatever. And that's what made me buy this software, learn how to use it, so I knew it 100%, design it around what I wanted to show my clients, because software kits, they have like 100 pages. You're not going to show them 100 things. So I used what I thought was powerful, and that's how I started my planning. And with that, I developed, well, at the end of every session, you make recommendations to your client, and there could be anywhere from 10 to 20 recommendations. Are they going to do all 20 recommendations or all 10 recommendations that day? No. But I needed to develop a plan how I get them back every year. And that's what I did. I developed a way that my assistant would be giving you a call exactly a year today minus a month to rebook your appointment. So I'd see these clients, and I did see these clients on a regular basis, same date every year, year after year. So whatever recommendations they didn't go with the year before, well, maybe they'll go with it this year or the next year or the next year. In the meanwhile, I'm still doing the planning, and they're still engaged in it, and they understand it. And that's what changed my career, because now I was no longer a product salesperson. I was actually an advisor, a financial advisor that was showing them legit where they're going to be at age 55, 60, and 65, or at age 85. And that's what the people want to see. And if they see that, they're comfortable with you, and they'll do business with you. But even more important than that, they bring you referrals without you asking, because they all have a friend and they talk about you. Well, this is what Kirk Wakefield's doing for us. And it just, because you put an extra effort into your business of learning something that they really want to go with.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Kirk, but I think first of all, the annual meeting and making sure that's structured, and especially meeting a client the same day every year, year after year, I think that's kind of crazy. But also similar to like a dental office, right, where they're very good at booking that next meeting, and if that next meeting is in the calendar, you don't need to make the sale. You just say, hey, this is what's smart for you. You can do it when you want, and eventually, when it makes sense for them, they'll proceed. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Now let's transition the focus to your succession planning journey. So, when did you start thinking about succession planning for your business?
Well, just like Chris, we love this business. So the idea of not doing it, especially when you've been doing it for so long, it never comes into play really. You don't think of it that way. You're getting older, but you're only old when you look at yourself in the mirror. That's the only time. So in bars, I try not to go and look at myself in the mirror. I started on these meetings. My clients would go, well, Kirk, you're showing us where our money is going to be 10 years from now. where are you going to be 10 years from now? Like, you're the same age as us, and we're retiring or we're retired. Like, when are you going to retire? And at first, I just joked with it. I said, "Well, I'm not that old yet, you know." But then I was getting more and more people were asking me, and then all of a sudden, I woke up one day and go, you know, I don't have a plan for these people or my family. If anything was to happen to me, there's no plan in place to take care of my clients or my family. Now, how ridiculous is that? And I know what my book of business would have been worth if I had no plan and I died. My wife has no idea how to run the business, not a clue. My girls were going to get into business, we're not going to get into business, we're going to get into business, and we're not in the business. So I couldn't count on them coming in, especially without having any training. So I said that it's time to learn what I need to get done. And thank God that there was a lady called Carolyn Hull that worked for the Canada Life, and that's what she did. So I got her, and that's when we started to set up a plan of how I go about getting my business ready to be able to be someone else to purchase it. And without that help, you know, it already took me, 5-6 years to do it. And if you're going to bring in a family member, you should count on 10 years because you got to train them. The person I sold to is already trained. But yeah, but without her, and then I learned how to get my book right, get rid of some of the old stuff that I don't deal with anymore, and get it ready for sale.
Now, I know immediately it was more about the emergency plans. If something was to happen to you, that you had essentially a successor, you could answer that question with confidence to clients to say, well, I've got a plan. If something happens to me or I retire, I've got a guy. But we're in the middle of this transition at the moment, but I'm curious, what's worked well for you in this process? And if you had to start over again, are there some things that you might change?
No, the person I sold the business to begin with, I sold some of my business off, so I watched them how they deal with that, and I gave them referrals mainly to my family members, and somehow they worked with that, and decided that if they were interested, then I'd be interested in going seeing how we work together, and then we did. We started working together and started getting my house in order. At this time, I had, I don't know, 300 files in 8 filing cabinets. How do you sell business with all that? So now today, I got no files. I got a computer. That's it. Nothing, nothing at all. So that's the young person coming in, and compared to me being the old guy, I get the young coming in to help me organize my business. And that's what we did. But I had to get a buy-sell agreement when it got done professionally by a lawyer, cost money, but it's done right. So, but the idea behind it was, if I was to die or become disabled, the business would be sold right away. As far as retirement, it was when I'm ready to retire. And I didn't know that date. I didn't know that date until it came up January 1st, 2024. And I felt at the end of this year, I'd be ready to move on and sell the business.
And for those that don't know, so I'm Kirk's successor. So I've been able to work with Kirk and had the pleasure of learning from him over the last 5 years and build relationships with many of the clients that he's forged relationships with over 40 years, which is such an honor and a privilege. Now, you mentioned Carolyn Ho, Kirk. Is there anyone else that I guess helped through this transition you'd like to give credit to?
Yeah, Greg Taylor, also with Canada Life. He worked on the business side. He dealt with head office. So we all know we don't want to deal with head office. So he's in the middleman, and he was a great middleman. Known him for quite a while, and he did a tremendous job for both of us in making the transition work, and supporting you, Brandon, on your next journey going ahead. So for sure, I wouldn't have been able to do it without those two, or I'd still be fumbling around with it. But with them, gave me direction, great direction, got it done, and you know, here we are today. You know, business was sold back in January, and I feel good about it, and I hope you do as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And Kirk has offered to basically come to many of the meetings during this transitionary period, which has been a huge help because it's ultimately some of them are scared. Change is difficult. And so having that sort of ongoing relationship, not just sort of like, okay, I'm done, see you later, I'm living in Mexico, I think goes a long way and has really helped with client retention through the transition and honestly asset growth. So we found sort of new business with clients, things that they perhaps didn't proceed with before, and like, okay, now let's move forward. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be mutually beneficial in that way for us, and then of course for our clients.
If there's one thing that I did really good, that was like what you just mentioned, carried on after my name was no longer on their paperwork. And I've got, and I'm carrying on not with every client, but mostly the top 20, right? Because those are the ones you see the most anyways. But I've had people say to me after the meeting, you know, Brandon being there talking with the wife and the husband, how me just say how so much he's appreciated me coming along, and will continue to do so for a little while, rather than just saying, "Here's Brandon, have a good life, see you later." You know, they really appreciate it. I didn't think they'd come out and say it like they have, but they have. I've seen it on a lot of them, and that's why I'm going to continue doing that for at least a couple of years. You know, don't forget, it's no work on my part. You know, I'm not preparing a meeting. I'm not dealing with paperwork and everything else. I'm just talking with the people I've known for 40 years. So I recommend that everybody does that. And also it holds it retains the business as well for the guy taking over. You know, I pride myself on not losing any business for Brandon, and so far that's worked out. And hopefully it carries on.
Yeah, as long as you're around to help, I'm sure I'll be in good shape. So thank you, Kirk, for all of your efforts thus far and continuing to support during the transition. Now, one final question before we invite Chris back for sort of open Q&A. And for those on the call, if we haven't answered questions that you're curious about, we do still have some more prepared for both Chris and Kirk, but would love to hear your questions as well. But Kirk, what would you say to advisors who haven't started their succession plan yet?
It's going to take a long time. It's not like you work on it every day, but start it. Not only you're going to retire, but you can get sick too. And if you're not prepared for it, then it could be devastating. So yeah, I would, it doesn't matter how old you are. I would start it right away in some form, and take your time, but at least get it going so you can get something in place.
Yeah, 11% is way too low, and there's too many Canadians that rely on their independent advisor to let that go to chance. Otherwise, they're stuck dealing with the banks or some large company that doesn't care. And that goes back to that matrix that Chris mentioned about sort of the high financial, high emotion. You clearly care about your clients, and that's why you were investing this time during the transition. It wasn't just about sell and see you later. It's sell so that there's a clear plan in place. And at a lot of the meetings, Kirk said, he says, look, like, I could have sold to someone in their 50s or in their 60s, but then you'd have to go through another transition in 10 years, which I think says a lot about how much you care about the clients because you know it's stressful for them. So you remove that stress. Okay, Chris, we'll welcome you back if you're still here.
Well, I am still here.
Scared me there for a minute.
Yeah.
Like we lost him. I know it's sunny in Miami, but Okay. So Kurt, Chris, first of all, I'm just curious. Do you mind just telling us a little bit about like the starting process of IPC and sort of how you went from advisor into starting the dealership?
Well, yeah, it's a story that I tell often because I still am confused some days on how I got to this side of the table. But I started as, very similar to Kirk. I started in the insurance business. I was with Empire Life. I got recruited right out of school. They gave me the book of leads, which was the phone book, and they set me loose on the unsuspecting public. And like Kirk, I had like one product sale and I like knew how to sell that. And I would just go do that over and over again. And then sometime in the early 90s, I thought, you know what? Mutual funds, that's the future. And so I should go and start doing that and started to move from very similar story from Kirk, from that sort of product sale to financial advice. I wasn't in that business anymore. I'm in the financial advice business now, and started to do full financial plans for all my clients. And to be honest, I loved it. Loved every second of it. I loved being an advisor. I loved dealing with people. I loved seeing their successes. I liked working with their kids. I liked attending retirement parties. I liked attending, kids' graduation, all because of the work I did. But where my level of frustration came in was I was frustrated with the company that I was with at the time, and we would have many conflicts back and forth. And, being sort of my personality, I'm like, how hard could it be to run one of these things? I'll just go start my own. Meanwhile, by the way, if anyone's thinking about it, it's way harder than it looks. There's a whole lot of moving parts that I was unaware of at the time. And that's, the original founding of IPC. And, quite frankly, it wasn't any grand design at the time. I just like being an advisor and I like to call my own shots. And so, started to bring other people who sort of had the same feeling and attitude that I did. And as I said, and our founding principle was how can we help each other build a better business? How can we really focus on the things that we need? Because we're all good advice. It's the building the business part that is the challenge. It's all the other hats we have to wear, whether it's HR or IT or, the marketing, branding, now social media. Like there's literally 100 hats you could wear in the same day. And those are the areas that we didn't necessarily have the expertise in. And so that was the original founding and the principles of IPC. And from there, we just found other people who were in the same business, and we started to join together. And other people were like me who ran dealers, who didn't actually like running dealers. And by the way, I never liked running a dealer, but yet here I was. And so we started to buy up other dealers. We started to bring everyone together as this sort of mass partnership. And eventually, we needed a real partner because we were running out of money. So that's how we originally did a transaction with IGM Financial, and and grew quite substantially with them as our money partner. And recently, and when I say recently, only in the last couple of years, we now moved into more of a strategic partnership as Canada Life has bought all of IPC. So during that time, by the way, I also went through what Kirk was because I had quite a large practice that eventually I had divided loyalties and time. I had to work on the business and work with my clients. And at some point, I decided that it was really unfair to my clients that I divide my time. I'm either an advisor or I'm a executive, but I have a hard time being both. And so at that point, I worked with somebody to take over my business who had worked with me for some time. And all the same trials and tribulations that Kirk had talked about, finding the right person that you can trust, that holds your philosophy, because when you're going through this process, like these clients, they're your friends. Like I eat dinner at their homes. I know their kids. I know their pets. I know where their vacation last. They've stayed in my home. Uh, you aren't, as much as a check might be nice, what's way better is to know that my clients are going to be looked after by somebody who cares about them.
Wow, yeah, a lot to unpack there as well, Chris. But I guess my main question would be, how did you know it was time to sell? You talked about the cash aspect of it, but how did you know it was the right time to sell and then how was Canada Life chosen, I guess, as a partner in your purview?
Well, I've bought and sold many times. So to be clear, I've bought 27 companies in my in my day, 80, no, now 90, no, 104 practices we have bought, as well as bought and sold IPC 3 times, and like segments, not all of it, just to be clear, and sold my own practice. So I would say that I have some experience on both sides of the fence. And the decision to sell my practice was, as I said, one of divided time. Right? You can only be good at certain things at any one period of time. And I remember the decision point was in the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, they had changed some of the RESP laws and eligibilities and stuff. And my client was asking me about this, and I was actually unable to answer because I hadn't been keeping up on it. And she actually corrected me. And I'm like, when my clients are correcting me, I think it's time to see whether I actually should be doing this any longer. And so that was sort of the decision point. Now, then you had to come to the point, as Kirk was, is who is the right person. Now, luckily, I had someone who had worked with me for some time, and quite honestly, did most of the work anyhow. I would just show up and like have coffee with people and stuff. And so that was a natural progression for us. As it relates to strategic partnerships, it was, again, a process of who sees the world. I think it always comes down in my world, anyhow, and probably Kirk can help me out on this, of philosophy is, do we see the world the same way? Are the, if I had to look 10 years, am I going to be proud that I did this transaction with this company, or am I going to regret it? And I think in both cases, when we partnered with IGM as our money partner, and now kind of like with our strategic partners, it makes sense. We see the future the same way. We know what we have to do. We know we care about the same things. That's the number one in my book. The check doesn't hurt. Don't get me wrong. Right? The check is nice, but you can get a big check and then not look at yourself in the mirror with a big smile on your face from that day on. So I think that's the starting point.
That's very interesting. For both your experience, Chris, and Kirk's are similar in a way that it seems like you took your time with both with the transaction. So you sort of got to know who your partner was. You did some light business with them, and then evolved that over time. Uh, it seems like that is, I see some good advice for anyone on the call, that it shouldn't just be a quick transition, either on the acquisition side or on the sales side. Because I have seen some advisory firms saying we're open to buying books of business, and they're promoting this online. Well, okay, but what does that mean? When you look at that matrix, the emotional and the financial aspect, I think for advisors that have put in 30, 40 years building these relationships, it's be challenging for them to just take a check and not talk to those clients again, because they've had dinner at your house, you know their family, you know when they've gone on vacation. Like, this is such an emotional transition. So let's move into kind of post identity. Now, this is still relatively new for both of you, and you're both still involved in the business in some way. But how has your personal life changed post transaction, and how has your time management or time investment changed? And let's start with you, Kirk, and then we'll go back to Chris.
Time management, everybody says, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I go, I don't know yet. I haven't retired yet. But now that I'm sort of semi-retired and I'm not doing as much work, like today I got to see you gentlemen, and then I got the rest of the day off. So, I got things to do in the afternoon, whatever, so that's working out fine, because I know it was time. It was time, right? Now that we've been at it here for like 3 months, my personal identity shifted in a way. I get less and less emails, and if I do get emails, I'm CC'd on them, not coming directly to me, and they're going directly to you. So I know now that this plan is working, right? This is working. They feel comfortable going to you right away. It's working, and I see that as time and time goes along here. You know, um, I see some things that obviously you do because you got way more technology than I have. So I'm sure that my old clients are appreciating that, but but um but yeah, so and now it's just a matter of finishing up what we want to do and then go fully into retirement and I'll be ready. I've always known how to be busy, take care of myself or whatever. So I'm not afraid of that at all. Not at all.
And you are a grandfather as well now, Kirk. So
I'm a grandfather. Yes, I am a grandfather.
I know little Lincoln will appreciate the moments with granddad. So and Chris, how about yourself?
Well, for me, it was about where you allocate your time. When I was the CEO and president CEO, when you're president CEO of a company that's a publicly traded company, let me tell you where you spend a lot of your times in meetings. And big companies love meetings. They love lots of meetings. They have operational meetings, compliance meetings, regulatory meetings, HR meetings, year-end meetings, start of the year meetings. They really, 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 really like meetings. And I can tell you the one thing that I hate more than anything in the world is meetings. I was also on 8 or 9 boards. I got really good at Angry Birds, so because I would do them virtually and I would just play video games on my phone until somebody asked me a question, and then I would answer that question of usually like 4 or 5 hours of dead air while everyone else was talking. I'm not blaming anyone. Like, that's the corporate world. That's how it works. I'm just not suited for that type of thing. So moving as we moved roles, and I identified this sometime before the pandemic, actually, that this is not where I wanted to spend my time going forward. And so I'm an old school strategic coach alumni. And if those who know strategic coach know, you focus on the 3 things that you can do better than anyone that produce all your value. And so I asked myself, what do I do best? And well, the only thing I really do is talk. I talk all the time, right? So people pay me to talk. So I'm like, who do I have to talk to? And I love talking to advisors. My passion is helping them build a better business. So, what better way to spend my days than working with advisors and helping them build their business? So, I spend a good chunk of my time doing that. Quite honestly, I love doing deals. So, I love acquisitions. I love the pursuit. I love the relationships that go into those. So, I spend a lot of my time on that. And I love strategy, so working with Canada Life is a very new and bigger organization that really wants to dominate the wealth management business in the Canadian space. And I think, and I know that we can do it with their legacy and their money and, the great people that they have there. So that's where I spend most of my time. On top of that, I wrote a book, I do a podcast, I travel a lot. So I actually don't know what I'm gonna like. I'm never at a shortage of things to do, and I do, and like her, I don't know when I ever would be. Um, you know, as I said, I love to talk. My wife's heard all my stories. She doesn't want to talk to me anymore, so she's like, go on the computer and yell at people for a while. That's what you like doing. So I would say, a good 5, 6 hours of my day is spent just as you see me.
Yeah, well, and you've had a little bit of time to settle into this new experience, Chris. Kirk, it's still so new to you as we're sort of in the middle of it. But I think this will evolve over time. We did have a question come in from the audience. We've got Kayla here from Kelowna. She's asked, what are some questions that you would ask your successor, and what are some answers that you're looking for? And Kirk, why don't we start with you?
Questions I asked the person who's buying the book of business off me.
Yeah.
I want to I need to know their goals. I need to know, obviously, family life, being financially stable, years in the business. It's got to have some years, like not 2 or 3, like 10 and above. Um, and yeah, just I need to know if they're a guy like me, like, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for, obviously, it's so important in this world or in this company, this business, to be honest. So it's got to be, I gotta believe in the individual, that he's honest, that you're never going to try to cheat a client. So those are the things that I'm looking for. And again, like Chris said, it's not so much about the money. You think it is, but I had other guys approach me. They're in their 50s. They would have given me more money, but I didn't, they're going to retire in 10 years. So my clients would have to go through it again. I didn't want my clients to go through it again. I wanted to be the last time they had to exchange financial advisors. And then I don't really trust the guy that he didn't know much about me, didn't know much about my book of business. He had no plan. And he just wanted me to sign it over. And then he was, like you said, get in a taxi or have a drive him around from client to client, signing the paperwork that he needs to sign, right? And I go, these people won't even know who he is, right? So that's why it was important to find somebody that's, obviously it's not 100% like me, but it respects my goals and what I've done to get the clients, to keep the clients for a long period of time.
And we've done a lot of events as well over the last couple of years. So, bringing some of my clients together with some of Kirk's. Like I had my own practice coming into this. It wasn't just a matter of like me as Kirk's junior. I was also running a successful business on my own. So Kirk had seen that sort of rise and was a part of that along the way, and saw that our clients got on well together because they're similar types of people. So yeah, I think that really great answer to that question, Kirk. Chris, I don't know if there's any kind of questions that you typically will see
Well,
or you've
I,
considered.
everything that Kirk said was exactly what you should have because it's, and we both know this because it's our legacy. We want to know what's going to happen. As somebody who buys, businesses quite a lot, first thing I ask them is pretend I'm your client. Now take me through your process. And if it seems random in any way, then I'd have to question. Personally, I am a client experience junkie. And if you listen to my podcast, it's all I talk about all the time is the client experience. Is it a great experience? Do they feel good about it? Do they feel good about you? Is it definable? Is it repeatable? Or are you all over the map? And so my first question is, okay, I'm your client. Now take me through your process. And if I'm impressed, then we can continue our discussions. If I'm like, well, you just sold me a mutual fund, I don't think we're going to go anything farther than this. So that by far is my first step. And then everything here said, you have to, be somebody that you can trust, integrity, and all those things. But number one, always for me, is how are my clients going to be treated? Like I want to be the client, and if I'm impressed, they'll be impressed. But if I'm not impressed, I can imagine they won't. Because one of the phenomenons we see all the time is people do want to grow by acquisition. But the problem is they have a crap business. And so if you take a crap business and you put another crap business on top of it, now you have doubly crap business. So you're only going to have a worse business, not a better business. So the first thing I tell anyone, if you want to buy another book of business, make sure your house, your lawn is mowed and your house is clean. Like it should be a perfect machine that creates that experience before you even think about putting another business on top of it. But so often we think of it as just like, let's just pile it together and I got new revenue and I can sell them some more crap. And that I'm totally against that.
Yeah, well, I was in the military for a little bit after I wrapped up high school. So process is like drilled into me by design, and I think this business is so process oriented. And I love the client experience conversation because when I first went into Kirk's office, he always had these Werthers at the front. He had a smiling assistant that was super nice, and he inspired me to want to have a physical office. We had a shared office with Canada Life, but those are getting shut down across the country. And so we'll be opening up our own office come May 1st. And I definitely wouldn't have done that if I hadn't had the experience with Kirk and seen the benefit that added to his business. So as it relates to the client experience, what would you say are some things that are important during a transition in order to ensure that clients stick around? And let's kick this one over to Kirk to start.
Well, I think they're going to stick around. I think what we plan to do when we sent out a letter to them back in December that it stated that this is what we're going through a transition. It's being taken over by Brandon Chapman. Da 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 da. Here's the staff. But I'm going to be around for, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be here to help. And I'll be around for 1 to 2 years, right? And I think that's really helped it because people are respecting that. And I still get phone calls too, and I'm number 4 on the phone list now. Um, um, so I think that's helped them understand that they understand that everybody retires sooner or later, and they knew that I was going to do it sooner or later, so they were already prepared. Now they just want to make sure that I pick someone good that's going to take over, and that I'm not going to fall off the earth. I'm still going to be around for a little while longer.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And Chris, I don't know if you have any points that you'd add in your experience.
Well, as I said, I think that's exactly it. But what we've done, we have this program within IPC called Pinnacle, where we actually take over the businesses. And one of the things that we do in that transition period is we call it a refit. So meet with the clients and almost restart the relationship. Ask them all the questions you would do, like redo and re-up their plan. Like, the handoff is Kurt has great confidence in you. I've handpicked him. This is why. Do the handoff. But then you say, I don't know you as well as Kurt does. Would you mind if I ask you a bunch of questions so that I make sure that I continue with this great service? And we find when we go through that process in that way, utilizing, a standard process, our retention rates are in the 98%. If we don't do it that way, and it's just sort of like to Kirk, send a letter and say, "Hey, man, I'm off to Mexico. Good luck with with Brandon here." Those numbers start to come down quite dramatically. But those clients probably trust Kurt, and the handoff itself is meaning he's filtered you and he knows you, but also not the assumption that I'm just going to take over and collect revenues from you, that I'm actually going to redo and go through your plan and make sure that I continue the great work that Kurt has done. And so I think that you guys certainly have done that, but that's the advice I would give everybody.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I'll say that seeing Kirk's process really helped evolve my own process because I was very tech focused. Most of my clients were young, they preferred a digital experience, but I really learned the benefit of having as much in-person time as possible with the clients and meeting them where they're at. So we ask clients at meetings, we've got a digital client discovery process and we've got the paper version. Which do you prefer? And still offering them those options during the transition as opposed to saying, this is the way or the highway. We got a question that's come in and saying, what are some potential obstacles on the horizon for veteran advisors who haven't started like Kirk? And I'll just share one point before I kick it over to you, fine gentlemen. When Kirk and I first got engaged, he had all these files. And so we hired an intern to help scan all his files and get them in the cloud. That was like step one before we'd even fully formalized Kirk's retirement plan. And that was, I think, a big weight off of Kirk because he knew that his files were actually there. And so I reference all those files before I meet with these clients because I can see their previous financial plan, I can see previous transactions and see some of Kirk's notes, which gives me a huge leg up over just sort of that random conversation with someone who to me is completely new. So I definitely recommend that. But Kirk, Chris, any thoughts on obstacles that advisors may find?
If they haven't started planning to do it properly, for both the person who's buying the business and the and and yourself, he has to he has to start it to get going because it takes a certain amount of time. You can't rush it. There's no rushing here. You gotta and the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take you, the older you're going to be, and so forth. So, even some people think that I'm too young to do it. Well, you're not. You can start it. You can get the mold made, and everything ready to go, and just sort of add on to it as years go by, and then you're ready to formalize it at some time. It's already built. So that's what I would do as well. But if you're definitely in your 50s today, you should get on it right away. Get on it right away.
I would agree. And I'll also just as somebody who buys companies, So, what are the obstacles? My speech is always the same. And I always tell people the more that your company looks like my company, the higher the value that I will subscribe to it. The less that your company looks like my company, the more money I have to put into it to make it look like my company. So the less valuable it is. So to Kurt's point, if you have a long period of time, you can make their company look like that company.
Yeah.
Because again, there is a lot of individuality in this business. And the other thing, of course, that we love in this business is complexity. We can take the simplest thing and make it so complex. And yet what people buy is simplicity. The biggest challenge is getting your business to the point where anybody can run it. And that is a challenge because it is a business of large personalities. And so the more, as I said, you can make it look like the business you want somebody to take over, probably the higher the premium and the easier the transition and the easier it is on clients. Because if you're going to sell it to somebody and go in a whole different direction, that probably will be an issue.
That's a very good point, Chris. Like advisors have sometimes egos and they have a reason why they've done certain things. But at the same time, the clients chose to work with that advisor typically for a reason. And so personalization and customization is so important because if people wanted the cookie cutter approach, they would just go to the bank. Now, the time's flown by. We're actually at the top, almost at the top of the hour here. So I'll just quickly summarize and run through a few things before we wrap up today's session. First of all, an ideal succession plan, it takes years of planning. So for those on the call, whether you're looking to buy or sell, get started on it now because it takes forever. And the longer you plan, the better plan you'll see at the end of the day, just like with your clients. Changing the advisor code, that's the easy job, but the knowledge and relationship transfer, that takes time and serious effort. Ensuring your staff are prepared and involved in the transition leads to high success. We didn't touch on that a ton today, but that's an important component as well. The emotional job of letting go is difficult, but just like we help guide our clients towards retirement, transitioning your time towards the next chapter is something you'll want to put some thought towards. And then my last sort of summary of our talk with Chris and Kirk is that each practice and clientele is different. So if you understand your clients, that's going to help you define your ideal successor. This is going to lead to retention of staff and clients during the transition. Now, taking this from Chris's book, but 3 rapid fire questions. First one over to you, Kirk. What's your favorite beverage after hours?
Bourbon.
Bourbon. And your favorite book that you might recommend to a client or an advisor?
Economist.
Economist. And your favorite hockey player and why?
McDavid, because he reminds me of myself.
Yeah, well, he's got to get his cup here soon. And over to you, Chris. Favorite beverage after hours?
I'm a Italian red wine drinker, so I'd say a Brunello.
And a favorite book to help during a transition?
Well, probably my favorite book of all time is called Seeking Wisdom, and from Darwin to Munger. So if you can find it, it's a very low circulation copy, but it's a great book.
And then favorite hockey player and why?
I got kicked out of Canada for a reason. It's because I don't follow any hockey whatsoever. So I'm gonna say Wayne Gretzky because it's pretty much the only hockey player I know. Oh wait, what was that guy's name? I had a neighbor who was a hockey player, but I didn't know. I thought he was a drug dealer because he was young and he had too much money. So I wish I could remember his name right now.
So you're blending into Miami well, Chris.
Exactly. Yeah, they banned me for a reason.
All right, so just briefly, I'll run through some quick updates on Advisor Flow for those of you who have been supporters. We're next week rolling out our new brand theme colors, so your digital presence is going to shine even more with your client engagement process. This will just help kind of maintain that brand consistency with your clients. We'll also be updating the surveys page to pave the way for our upcoming AI feature. And of course, don't forget about our advisor referral program. So if you refer the platform, you can get 10% off your subscription, and that will last as long as your referees have signed up to the software. So if you have any feedback on any of these features, please do let us know. We're always trying to enhance the product design. And our first AI feature will be coming out later this month. This will allow you to convert your existing PDF processes into dynamic cloud-based experiences. We're the only software company I know doing this, so very much welcome your feedback. And of course, we'll continue to map data that's gathered with your PDFs to your CRM of choice, and ideally your back office once I can get some dealers to work more closely with us. And lastly, we are hitting the road, so you can find us next month at KLU in Ottawa, as well as Kailba in Montreal towards the end of this month. So we'd love to connect in person if any of you happen to be there. Our next event will be on expanding your client base. We're partnering up with SagePath Consulting and Hey Advisor for an exclusive webinar on how to grow in the digital age. So make sure you're following us on LinkedIn if you have an interest in attending that event. So as we wrap up, any final words from our guests? Kirk?
No, thanks for having me today. And Chris, great to learn more about what you've been through. And I think we've been through similar paths, maybe different at the end, but pretty close. No, I really enjoyed it. And Brandon, thank you again.
Yeah, I think this was great. Both of you been fantastic. And as I said, the big thing that everyone has said is, of course, get started. It doesn't matter what stage you are in your business. Succession is going to be a reality, and you don't know when that reality is going to come. So it's better to be prepared than not prepared.
Beautiful. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Appreciate your time, Chris and Kirk. This was excellent, probably better than I expected. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.